Hi, welcome back. In this video I'm going to be doing my weekly reading wrap up. I'm going to cover the books, give a quick review over the books that I have been reading in the past week and what I'm currently reading. Hopefully you'll get some ideas of things that might be worth picking up and having a read through yourself, and maybe what to avoid. Okay, so in my last reading wrap up I was in the middle of reading this book, or I pretty much just started reading this book, The Valley of Secrets by Charmaine Hussey. I actually picked this book up because I quite like the look of the cover, and I quite like the map inside, and I like the idea of the story. So basically there is an adopted chap who, well, I say adopted, he was in a children's home and he's been looked after by his what they call house parents. It's set in the 80s and he has no idea about his history. He just knows that he was abandoned as a baby. A mother's name was given. He was left with a childminder, and the parents didn't come back, which is how he ended up. So there was questions around, you know, was he abandoned or did something happen? And then he suddenly comes across this inheritance from a great uncle who obviously had no idea about. It's a house in Cornwall, and this amazing, overgrown, stunning sort of acreage around this house, and strange things happen, really strange. But there's a clause that nothing must change. He mustn't sell anything, he mustn't change anything, can't make any changes to the house. And when he goes to, and he can't invite anybody in as well, so strangers can't come to this house. So he goes there, and his life is transformed. And the secrets of the house and the secrets of his great uncle's past start to come together. It moves back from the Amazon to Cornwall. You're reading through his great uncle's journals with him and slowly piecing together what's happening in this Cornish estate. Really enjoyed it. I'd give that a 5 out of 5. Simply written, wasn't complex, enough detail, without waffling, and a really enjoyable book. So that was the first one. I then moved on to The Memory Keeper's Daughter by Kim Edwards. Now this was a story about twins that were born in, I want to say the 60s. So yeah, it starts off in 1964. And it moves all the way through to 89. So it covers quite a span, sort of 20 odd years, of the lives of 5 people. So the twins that were born, the nurse that was there at the birth, and the parents. Now the father is a doctor, and his wife goes into labour on a snowy day, and when he gets to the place where she's supposed to be giving birth, his sort of assistant nurse is waiting for them, but the doctor who is supposed to be helping birth these babies has had an accident on his way in because of the snow, and he's not going to be able to make it. So he ends up delivering his own babies. They were not expecting twins. This is kind of pre-scan time. And so the first child comes out, a beautiful baby boy, everything's great. And then he realises there's another one on the way, and when he turns over his daughter, when she comes out and he turns her over, he realises that she has all the classic signs of Down syndrome. And it was sort of, I guess, a very naive time, and the views around Down syndrome in America at that time, and possibly in other countries, I mean, I imagine here in England it probably wasn't that different, was that these children were better off in an institution, that their life expectancy wasn't going to be great, they were going to suffer with various health issues all their lives, and mentally they weren't going to thrive and be able to contribute to society, and so the best thing to do was to put them in an institution, which we all know now is so wrong. But that was how things were back then. And so he asks the nurse to drive his daughter to the institution. Also another practice that seems to be the case in America, and I don't know if it was here, is that as the mother was in heavy labour, she was quite sedated, so that she didn't have to suffer the the birthing process, which seems quite alien, because it just seems alien. So she wasn't aware that she'd given birth to twins, and he told her she'd given birth to twins, but he said that the daughter had died, was born stillborn. But he wouldn't let her see her daughter, because obviously he'd sent her off. But he said he'd dealt with it, and that he was trying to save her the pain, and that she was, she'd been sent off to be buried. So it's the story of the mother trying to come to terms with the fact that she's got one baby, and so she should be happy, but also she's lost her daughter, who she never actually met, and how this affects her life, how it affects her mental health, and ultimately their relationship. It covers the husband, the doctor, who has to live with the guilt of what he's done, but also has to live with the knowledge that his daughter didn't end up in an institution, because the nurse gets to this institution and decides she can't put her there, and makes this rash decision to raise her as her own. So there's also the life of, so he carries this secret on throughout his entire life, because the nurse has got his daughter. And then the nurse having to raise this girl as her own, and what that entails, fighting for a child to have the rights as every other child who has Down syndrome, the health implications that have come from her condition, all sorts of other things like that. And then also the guilt, the pressure that the guilt for the father puts on his relationship with his wife, and the son, who knows he was one of a twin and never seems to feel like he lives up to never seems to feel like he can please his father, obviously not realising what his father's going through. So it covers the 5 different aspects, the 5 viewpoints of these people over sort of a span of 20 years, and their life, and are they ever going to find out that there was this other, is he going to go to his grave carrying this secret? Is this nurse ever going to turn up with this daughter, and kind of, all those sorts of things that, questions that you're asking yourself as where the story's going. I really enjoyed it. It was a real insight into how things were sort of back in the 60s. How people viewed people with disabilities, or who were different in some way. And as a mother of children with ASD, I have been aware that probably my eldest child, although very high functioning autism, has needed a lot of support to get through school, and we have had to adapt our life to make, so he can cope with life, and so that he's happy and things go swimmingly. And I'm just very aware that actually probably he would have ended up in an institution back in the day, because that's what was expected and that's what people did, and that's quite a sad thought. But you can't help put your own children in that situation, whenever you read books and you're a mother yourself. So this was really good. I would say a good 4 out of 5 for this. So that was The Memory Keeper's Daughter by Kim Edwards. So then I wanted something a little bit more light-hearted, and I went for The Adultery Club by Tess Stimson. And this is really good. It's the story of a divorce lawyer, of all people, who should know better, who has issues himself with his history, and things that happened in his own life. But he marries this lovely woman, and they have this great life, and she is a celebrity cook, and he's a divorce lawyer. And this girl comes in, this 20, he's in, I think he's 43, and this woman starts working alongside him, and she's in her 20s, called Sarah, and she just drives him wild. He doesn't know why. He just can't think of anything but getting in her knickers, basically. And they end up ultimately having an affair. And it's how affairs can start, and people just think it's not going to hurt anybody, nobody's going to know, it'll all be fine. And I'm not going to get caught up in it. And then how emotions get caught up in it. And then the whole debate about, well, will he leave his wife, you know, sort of from the female's point of view, is she, you know, is he ever going to leave her? And it's just, it's a really interesting book. It's not hard going. It's light-hearted. It took me about 2 days to read. It was, you know, it's not trashy chick lit type stuff. It's, you know, not your kind of airport book that you'd pick up and sit on a beach and read. It's not to that extent, but it is just a bit of light-hearted. It's a light-hearted read. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was interesting. Yeah, really good read. That's all I can say about it, really. Really good. It was enjoyable. So, that was that one. Okay, this one I had really high hopes for. Girlfriend 44 by Mark Barrowcliff. Now, I've never read anything of his. It says here, to find the perfect girl for him, 43 women and 20 years later, he is no nearer his goal. He doesn't ask for much, just a beautiful intellectual who doesn't mind his constant infidelity. Harry's best friend and flatmate, Gerard, did once find true love, but he didn't realise it until the day she left him. Only 2 women have met his exacting criteria, and he's not hopeful that he'll find another. Even if he does, he isn't sure he can trust her now to grow old eventually. Oh, sorry. He cannot trust her not to grow old eventually. And then they meet Alice. Alice is the perfect girl. She's the only one in the world Harry and Gerard can agree on, and unfortunately, she seems to like both of them. Gerard wants Alice for himself, but Harry will stop at nothing to win her. Friendship is forgotten, and even a little light poisoning is on the cards. But can a man who thinks a size 10 is a bit on the chubby side grow up fast enough to win the girl of his dreams? So, I thought this might be fun. It's written from a man's point of view as well, which makes it even more interesting. Fortunately, I only got, I don't know what, this far into it, and I just couldn't go on. I really couldn't. It wasn't easy. I thought I was distracted, so I took it into a quiet place and sat and tried to read again. I put it down and came back to it the next day and tried again. And I came to the conclusion that the way this guy writes, the story doesn't progress, or at least in this amount of time. And I appreciate you have to set the scene and you have to give some character background. But this much of the book was spent, so what are we looking at? 30 odd pages, it seems, was spent in probably what was an hour in real time. Somebody coming over for a cup of tea, and someone writing a letter, and someone coming in from a night on the town. The backstories seem to take up more space than the currently what was going on, which meant that I kind of lost track as to where we were. I knew we were still in the kitchen and I knew this was going on, but then suddenly we were talking about this girlfriend and this girlfriend and this girlfriend. He seems to liken everything to something else, which again, or go on a side, it reminded him of something else. And then you end up talking about that for longer than you talked about what's actually going on. And the other person I found who did this was Stephen King. So maybe if you're used to Stephen King, but then that wouldn't bother you. But I know that that is a trait in a book that I cannot get on with. It bores me. And I just find it too difficult to read. I like to know, I like a story to progress. I don't want a slow progression, or no progression. So I had a quick flick further through and just picked a page at random and started to just read that page. And again, he was likening something to something else. And I was like, no, this is going to go on through the whole book. So I'm going to cut my losses now and stop reading it. So unfortunately, I couldn't tell you anything about this book other than I didn't enjoy what I read of it, although I did only give it 30 odd pages. It didn't flow well for me, and there was too much distraction from the main story. It was like having a conversation with somebody who digresses and gets sidetracked every 5 minutes. Not even every 5 minutes. And so you never actually get to the point. So that's how it felt in the first 30 odd pages. So if you can get past that, maybe it improves, but I wasn't prepared to go any further. Then I picked up this one. This is The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapina. And this says, your neighbour told you that she didn't want your 6-month-old daughter at the dinner party. Nothing personal, she just couldn't stand her crying. Your husband said it would be fine. After all, you only live next door. You'll have the baby monitor and you'll take it in turns to go back every half hour. Your daughter was sleeping when you checked on her at her last. But now as you race up the stairs in your deathly quiet house, your worst fears are realised and she's gone. You've never had to call the police before, but now they're in your home and who knows what they will find there. What would you be capable of when pushed past your limit? This was gripping. This was a really good... it was told from it was kind of told from an outsider's point of view, so it was written as they did this, they did this, they did this, this person did this. But it also told you what they were thinking. So it was narrated, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, rather than from a viewpoint. So you dipped into everybody's thoughts. You dipped into the mother, you dipped into the father, you dipped into, at one point, the grandmother, and you dipped into the policeman. So regularly it was the mother, the father and the policeman. I quite quickly felt I knew sort of what might have happened, and I had a feeling that somebody was involved in what was going on, but I couldn't work out what benefit he would get from it. And then I worked out what benefit he would get from it, but by that point you'd already been told something else was going on. So I was like, I can't really work out how the two connected. And then there was a final bit in the last couple of chapters where I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. When you start hearing things from the grandmother's point of view, there's a chapter where she talks and you're like, oh, okay, so now I can see the benefit. And it was really gripping, really enjoyed it. I like a book that makes you think about what is going on, who's done what, where is this baby, if what I'm thinking is true, then why did that happen? And, kind of really gets your mind going. So I enjoyed that. It also kind of dipped into each character's history a little bit, and the history of a mother who has got it's American, so postpartum depression, but obviously here it would be postnatal depression. And so you kind of question some of the things, as does the policeman, about the reliability of her story. It's good. It's a really good book. I did really enjoy it. The very last chapter, literally the last few pages in this book, something happened and I was like, no, I don't think that was needed. I think it should have stopped when the mystery was solved. I don't think it needed the last chapter. The last chapter for me was like, if you like a, oh, no, then great, and I do like that, but I just felt like it wasn't needed. I didn't think it needed it, but it's still a good 4 out of 5 for this book. Really enjoyed it. And now I am reading this one, Kim Edwards, The Lake of Dreams. I've had this book in my pile for a little while. I've had to stop buying books at the charity shops because I've got a huge pile down the side of my bed, literally almost as tall as the bed. So I need to get through those. I think I've got 20 books that currently need reading, and I'm not one of these that has them all over bookshelves. So I've got a pile out in the hallway and this pile here, which are going to go back to the charity shops today. So they're not hanging around, apart from one book which I'm giving to a friend. Other than that, I like to read them and get them out of the house and then bring new ones in. But I've still got 25 books that need reading. So even though I'm going to the charity shops today, I'm going to try really hard not to buy any new books. So I'm this far through, what's this, 107 pages in. It says here, the darkest secrets are the ones we hide from ourselves. 10 years ago, traumatized by her father's death, Lucy left her home and her country. Now she returns to her family's rambling lakeside home to lay old ghosts to rest. Sleepless, one night, Lucy makes a momentous discovery. Locked in a moonlit window seat is a collection of family heirlooms, objects whose secrets no one was ever supposed to find. Piecing together her family's true history, she realises that the story she's always been told was a fiction. Mesmerising and haunting, The Lake of Dreams is a startling story of family secrets and lies, lost love and redemption, and of the many pieces and puzzles that make up a life. Now, I wasn't sure what to expect from this. So this girl has been travelling all around the world. She comes back because her mum's had an accident, not a serious accident, but she comes home after 2 or 3 years away, and lots of things in her home area are changing. You find out that her father and her uncle were not getting along, something to do with the family business, which her father then walked away from and her uncle took over. Her uncle seems to be trying to, from what I see so far, trying to make up for past issues, and so he's doing things like repairing bits in the house and what have you for her mum, and he's also given her brother a job in the family business, and he said there's always a job for her if she wants to go there. There's a piece of fabric that has an intricate design and a little note attached to it that her mother found years ago in an old chest that her great-grandfather, I think it was, made. And there's this story about how this chest came about and how this chest was made. This has the same handwriting as something that she finds in these window seats, and it's about sending somebody away, a young girl of 14, called Iris, I think it was. I can't remember. Iris, I think her name is. And it's written in the same handwriting. And then she meets up with an old boyfriend who is, I'm sure there's a technical word for it, blows glass. He has a studio and he's very talented and he blows glass and he creates these beautiful things, but he's also into window restoration. So he's restoring the windows in this old church, which has been boarded up for many, many, many years. And they're now looking at the history of it. But the intricate pattern, which is quite unusual, that was embroidered around this piece of fabric is also on this window. So she starts doing her research. She starts going to the church, finding out who donated the windows, finding out who commissioned the artwork for the windows, and has just started to piece together connections to her family. And that's as far as I've got so far. It is a little bit slow, but it's enough to keep you going. So even though it's a little bit on the slow side, I'm enjoying it, and I can see the potential that the story's going to pick up a bit. Now all these bits of information are coming together. I think the pace of the book is going to speed up a bit. I think more of these family secrets are going to come out, a bit more of the family history is going to come out, and it's going to get a bit more exciting. There's also the side story of her ex-boyfriend who, when her father died, she kind of cut off and left. He is now separated with, he's got this business and he's got a 6-year-old son who's currently staying with him. She's left her boyfriend over in Tokyo where she's been staying, and he's coming in a couple of weeks to be with her. And so I'm wondering what's happening there. I'm wondering if there's going to be a slight kind of confusion of romance and various other bits. Is she going to decide to stay rather than travel? I don't know. I'm not really sure. There's also a lot of talk of these earthquakes. So part of me wonders if something's actually going to happen to her boyfriend before he gets to England, because there was an awful lot in the first couple of chapters, an awful lot of focus on these small earthquakes and what have you over there. And I'm just beginning to wonder if maybe something a bit more serious is going to happen and her boyfriend never makes it over. But that's just my, that's just where my mind's going with it at the moment. But really enjoying it, really enjoying it. So I shall let you know in my next book review how I get on with that. And but so far I would recommend it. So those are the books I have read in the last week, and pretty much all of them I've enjoyed, apart from that one book. So yeah, it's been a successful read this week, quite a successful read. And like I said, I've got a stack more to go. So after this one, I can start on my 20 odd books that are down the side of my bed. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of videos on 30 Days Wild. So if you guys are doing 30 Days Wild or interested in 30 Days Wild, which is the Wildlife Trust's, all of June they are covering getting out, encouraging people, encouraging children to get outside and take a bit more notice of nature, spend some time in nature, support wildlife, feed the birds, that kind of stuff. Take your kids out bug hunting, get outside and just be a bit more connected to the earth we're living in or living on. So if you're interested in any of that, I've got quite a few 30 Days Wild videos that I've already put up with ideas of things to do with children. And I've got more coming through the whole of the month. I've got other book reviews. So if you have a look on my book review playlist, then you can see other books that I've enjoyed and not enjoyed and things I recommend and things I don't. I've got a few shopping hauls, so if you're interested in shopping hauls, then have a quick look at those. And also my area of, well, the reason I set up this channel originally was to share ideas for play and learning through play with young children. So check out those if you have young children and you fancy some fun play ideas. Cool. Okay, thanks for watching, and I will try not to buy more books when I go out this afternoon.